Today we are going to make the most delicious, crunchy on the outside, gooey in the middle, hash browns. Now what we're going to do is do things a little bit differently. I'm going to make two different hash browns for you. The first one is going to be really crispy. We're going to mix some veg, some onion, some garlic through it. And the second one is a double layer. So it's a little bit softer on the inside, more like a mashed potato texture with a layer of mozzarella. So that when you cut down and you get through that crunch and you pull it apart, there's that cheesy layer in the middle. Now, I am also, as usual, going to use tofu or smoked tofu. Today I've chosen a smoked tofu. This recipe would be amazing with a smoked chicken, but you don't have to have any meat in it. If you would like it as a side, you can have these for breakfast with poached eggs on top. You can have them as part of your dinner meal with whatever protein source you like on the side. So they're a really good way of getting some veg into the kids as well, and veg into yourself. If you're not a big veg eater, what I'm going to do is I've shaved up some peppers here really thinly, and we're going to chop some broccoli really small as well. So if you're not a big veg eater, this is a really nice, tasty way of getting everything in. So we'll get started with prep. I have here my mozzarella sliced. I have some smoked tofu sliced. So I'm going to get to doing the rest of the potato here now. Now, what a lot of people do is peel the potatoes and then grate them, but I'm actually just looking for some extra fiber here. So remember, if you're playing a lot of sports, if you're doing a lot of endurance activities, what you want to do is make sure, number one, you've got good gut health. So fiber is what we term a prebiotic. It's going to create that good environment for your microbiome. A diet high in fiber has been shown to help reduce risk factors for cardiac disease. So I'm going to leave the skins on because I want to help increase the fiber intake for this meal. So what I'm going to do, I've already grated 2 large potatoes in here. I'm going to grate another one. I don't know how loud this grating is going to sound on camera. I'm not going to watch the camera as I do this because I will lose a finger. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is get a tea towel. Now you can use, I've got a muslin here, like a cheesecloth, but you can use a tea towel just as easily. And you okay? So what I'm going to do, a little bit of a messy job. This is going to go straight into the wash afterwards. I'm going to scrape all this potato onto the tea towel, and I'll show you why here in a second. Make sure to keep those bits out. So let's get all this into the middle of the cloth. Okay, so as I said, if you're not a big fan of the skins, you can just peel the potatoes before you do this. So I'm going to wrap this up. Take our bowl that I have here to show you, and we're going to just twist. So you can see already there's a lot of fluid comes out of these. So the reason we want to do this is because we want the outside nice and crispy. Okay, so that is quite a lot of fluid that comes off those there. I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, so what we're going to do next is pull out a frying pan. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, our electricity has just gone. So I'm going to do all this prep, show you how to do it, and hopefully before the end of the video it's going to come back, so I'm actually going to be able to cook these for you. Now, let's go. Now you can see I have 2 pans here, and one is a little bit larger than the other. You can either use butter or a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to use olive oil right here now. So I'll show you how we're going to get it started. So a little drizzle of olive oil. The reason we have 2 pans is because we're going to heat the larger pan and leave it to one side, so that when it comes to flipping, we're not trying to get underneath this and trying to turn it over, and it's kind of like a wonky pancake. You don't want it cracking in the middle because it ruins the effect. So what we're going to end up doing is flipping from one pan into the other. So I'll pop this over here. Now, first thing we're going to do the thin and crispy one to start. Okay, so put this over here. So we're just going to break a bit of that off. Now, what I'm going to do first, I've got some red onion here. So you can put whatever mix of veg you like in here. I'm going to break up the red onion so it's nice and evenly layered in the bottom of the pan. And for this thin and crispy one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop a little bit of smoked tofu in there, and I'm also going to sprinkle with some parmesan. Gives it that nice texture, a little bit of a crisp on top and some good flavour. So rather than putting it in blocks, I'm going to sprinkle this on top. And so this is a kind of an oniony one, gorgeous for a fry at the weekend if that's what you like. And as I said, it makes the absolutely perfect base for poached eggs. Now what you can also do with this as it begins to cook, if you wish, is crack an egg into it and make sure the egg is whisked. Pop it in here and you have a kind of almost like a Spanish omelette, except the potato is grated, and it just gives you the most delicious potato omelette. I've told you that this is a great way of getting some extra veg in, so I'm going to show you what we're doing here. I'm going to use the hair of the trees, as the kids call it. And just really, really finely slice into this. Take away any bit and pop this on top. Now, if you wish, you can just pop a small other bit of grated potato on top here, and then we're going to really flatten this down so that we can get it nice and crispy. So you're starting this on a high heat because you want it to crisp up on the outside, as opposed to any of the liquid starting to come out and the potato starting to kind of almost boil in its own water, which is why we've removed a lot of the water from it. Okay, so starting with a high heat, then we're going to turn it down and just let it sit in the heat for a little while. So I'm using a large spoon and I'm just going to try and flatten that all down. Now what you can also do is you can use here we go. You can use a Perspex dish, which is going to work really well. Squash down the middle, and then you might need to run around the edges of it with a spoon, but it just allows that to be really nicely squashed down. Okay. Okay. Now, what we're going to do with this next is a little bit of salt and pepper on top. We're going to put it on a high heat and it's going to cook from the bottom, and as I said, we'll reduce the heat then and let it cook the way through. When we flipped it over, we're going to sprinkle the top with some Parmesan cheese and pop it onto the grill. So number 2, again, a little bit of oil in there, spread it around. So there's loads of ways. This is the base recipe, guys, so you can put anything into this. There's loads of different ways you can make this work for you. I'm going to add tamari because, again, when everything I have is vegetarian, tamari just gives that little bit of, I don't know, it just gives a meaty flavour. It's that something you're always missing. So I'm going to add a little bit of that in there, just a splash, and let it all mix through. So first things first, a little bit of potato. So this is a smaller pan. Again, we're going to be using this pan to re-deliver the potato or the hash into a larger frying pan. Okay, so that's all settling down there. So I'm going to add, make sure if you can that the onions are on the bottom layer as well. So I'm going to mix this through with the oil and the tamari. Okay, now I'm going to add in my garlic. and some of my finely sliced red peppers to flatten it down. And you can have these prepared in the fridge, guys. I keep saying it. If you come back from a session, you come back from the gym, come back from a long ride on a bike, these are ideal. Pull out of the fridge. If you've put egg in them, you've got a bit of protein there. If you put some tofu or cheese or whatever you like into them. Now, I'm using mozzarella here today, but you don't have to use mozzarella. And in fact, the kids love this with some cheddar cheese in the middle. I'm going to layer some mozzarella. I also have a little bit of pesto just to go with that mozzarella vibe. Now, you can add fresh thyme, you can add fresh rosemary, you can chop up bits of slow roasted beef in there, add whatever you like. Now, so I'm just drizzling a little bit of pesto through there. Okay. And this is, as the man says, where the magic happens. So this layer, you're going to have to cook this a little bit more slowly to make sure it's cooked through, because it's going to be a thicker dish, I guess. But when you crack it down the middle and pull that apart, it's so satisfying. So on top of my mozzarella, I'm adding a little bit of my smoked tofu. Not overdoing it. You don't want it too thick because it kind of ruins the effect. Okay, so a little bit of potato on top. Okay, so back in with our dish, and we're flattening down. Okay, and just going to flatten it around the edges. So I need to add a bit more potato around the edges there now so that the cheese doesn't burn in the pan, although you know yourself, those crispy edges on a toasted sandwich are nearly the best part of a toasted sandwich. So this is our deep pan hash brown with an Italian twist, because we've got our mozzarella and our pesto. So our last one now. Again, a little bit of oil, a little bit of, you can drizzle balsamic into it as well if you like, or you can top it at the end. The Italian one especially, you can drizzle it at the end with a little bit of, you know, the balsamic glaze. It's really nice. Okay, so this is all going in one boat. Putting in our onion, our peppers. I'm gonna scrape the rest of those bits in there. Okay. The last of our tofu is also going in. And again, this is a thin and crispy one. And the last of our potato. Again, if you have a large pan and you want to fill it, you want less potato in it, you can just add your egg and it makes the most delicious omelets. Okay, so this is pretty much the thinnest one we have. It's going to fill the pan, so I'm actually going to add more tofu. So this is going to be the higher protein one. So again, look, you know me, at this stage I'm adding tofu to everything. I don't eat tofu every day of the week. My protein sources vary, but tofu, for any of you vegetarians out there, tofu is considered a whole protein, which means that it's got all the 9 essential amino acids. So if you haven't, or if you're not aware of what it means when we say essential amino acids, there are 11 amino acids that aren't essential they're not essential because the body can make them. So when you eat food, your body can break down other bits and pieces, other essential amino acids, and make these amino acids, the 11, from what you're ingesting, or it can make it within the body. Whereas with the essential amino acids, with the 9 essential amino acids, they can't be made inside the body. Your body cannot synthesize them. So you must get them from your diet. And for meat eaters, this is fine because something like steak or chicken or eggs have all of the essential amino acids, now in varying amounts. So steak might have a little bit more of one compared to another, and then chicken might be a little bit different. But tofu also has all of the 9 essential amino acids. If you are a vegetarian and you struggle to get in protein sources like this, say lentils might have a large amount of one set of essential amino acids, but chickpeas might have the balance to allow you to get a broader picture. So it's important when you are considering your protein intake that you're also considering your intake of essential amino acids. And if you want to learn more about nutrition, I do have a nutrition course for athletes. So you can look me up on FionaO'Donnell.ie, but I'll be giving you a little bit of snippets of information here and there on here as well. So it was starting out really thin, this one, but now I've got more tofu than I have potatoes. So I'm going to grate another potato here and pop it on top. For any of you cringing that I might lose a finger, it's probably best you look away. Okay. Now, we've got to wring this one out now again. So try not to take the shortcut of not squeezing out the potato, because I promise you, you'll end up it just won't be as crispy. So it's definitely worthwhile wringing it out. Also, if you're baking, don't throw this away. I'll show you in a second how much starch is at the bottom of that bowl. When we pour the water off the top of it, it's great for baking. Okay, so you see how dry that is now. So we're just going to break that apart and sprinkle it over the top. And it allows us to have that really nice crusty and crispy layer on top. So I have 3 of these guys on the go now. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to sprinkle some black pepper on top. I'm going to season all of them. I love black pepper. And if you wish, when you're flipping into the bigger pan, you can also add in that little bit of tamari. You can add in some balsamic vinegar if you like, allow it to caramelize a little bit before you flip this into it. And I'm going to show you this now in just a second. Okay, so it's obviously a dirty pan, but you probably can't see this layer here. Is kind of grainy, it feels grainy. That's the starch coming off the potatoes. So that's really good for baking bread, I promise you. It just creates, actually I must do this, creates a lovely texture for the bread. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna flash it down on the sides. Okay. And now we get to the cooking. So I have got 2 of these on. I've got them up at a high temperature, so the base of them is really starting to sizzle. I'm going to start heating my large pan. Now, one of the ones I have on is the thick one, so I'm going to turn the heat right down on that, and I'm actually going to cover it just to allow any of the bits in the middle to start cooking through. So I'm going to turn that down to halfway and cover. I have my pan here with a little drizzle of oil in it. I'm going to add some tamari to that. and I am going to start heating it so that we can flip. Okay, so I'm going to show you the thicker one now, and you can see in this one how the texture, how the colour of the potatoes has changed. Alright, so they've gone from that opaque to almost a translucent. I can see that the cheese, the mozzarella, has started to melt quite significantly. So again, I'm going to put a little bit of pepper on this, and I'm going to pop it into the large pan. So hopefully we don't have as much caramelization of the onions as we did in the previous one. Okay, that looks pretty gorgeous. So this is what this one is looking like. Again, it might look from that angle a bit too caramelized, but it's absolutely perfect. Okay, so we are going to start dishing these up. I'm using a pizza cutter. So it's worked out quite well. It's keeping its shape, which is wonderful. Again, a very simple recipe, a very simple accompaniment to a meal, or something that you can have on its own for lunch, and I hope you enjoy it.